Okay, sorry. Anyways, so those are a few of my thoughts.
Which was the meeting? Aren't we supposed to have a presentation again as well on the work that's done this summer?
Yeah, that will be the 8/24 meeting as well. Okay. Yeah, so we would be hearing about the bond, what the choices are for the board to make at that August 24th meeting. And then that would also be this committee's chance to present its recommendations. But there is a chance they wouldn't be, sorry, I'm distracted here. There is a chance that they wouldn't be approved till the 8th. So any other thoughts to add into that time frame? We can come back to it later. You know me, I like to like circle around and then come back if we can.
Should we pencil in any work we have planned this summer, even though it's not necessarily meetings, but you know, I think we had talked about, you know, there's going to be some work going on this summer.
You mean bond work or?
Yeah. Yes.
Sure. So that would be like, there's some bond planning, like we have those aren't public meetings, they're just, you know, backstage meetings. There's one tomorrow. Which is the 30th. Is that what you mean, Tim?
Yeah, just so again, it's just kind of clear that we're not just going to be coming in cold on the 24th, and but there's work that's going to roll up to the 24th. Is that the only one we have scheduled?
Yeah.
We're just going to kind of go from there. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, maybe we jump to goals and we'll come back and see if how we work that into the timing of things. What do you guys feel like are some of the things we should, and actually, I guess I should just confirm, do you feel like this framework is useful for today's meeting? Is this okay? Okay. All right, so what are you guys thinking about goals for our community engagement in the fall? Like, are we looking for feedback or are we looking for getting information out?
Yeah, I mean, you know, given the timeline and the strictness of it, looking to get information out is where I would lean.
Agreed.
I third that.
I think along with that, we're going to want to explain to people why November. So if we're going for this bond November 2nd, and for a lot of people that may be sort of news coming back into the school year, I think that's going to be important, like, because, you know, even like we saw in the Valley Reporter this week, we may hear folks say, well, why can't we just wait till town meeting day? And, you know, I have a few ideas for me of why I would still prefer November over, say, January or March. If, you know, one of them being that if we need to continue to revote on a bond, we get more time within the school year to do so. What does it mean if we pass the bond in November in terms of the opportunities and the costs? So those would be things that I want to be able to answer for folks as part of the communication out.
Yeah, I do, because I think that's important too, Caitlin, in terms of the overall timeline and the bidding process. I do think we might, even though we're trying to get approval for this whole plan, with that meeting on the 24th, if there's going to be a presentation, I do think we're going to want to make sure that people know that's coming up. And, you know, even though we might not be formally looking for feedback at that point in time, that is really if people are interested in giving feedback, they're going to want to watch that and know that's happening.
one of the things I wondered about was if we could have a survey ready to go that we could share on the 24th and collect by the 8th in order for the board to incorporate that. So I know that we got some criticism. So this is for you weigh in on any of it, but I know that we got criticism about that survey that we did around the middle school, but I still actually really liked that survey because I think it asked people to make the same kinds of decisions that we have to make. And I think just asking these hanging out there in space absolute questions is not useful for the conversation. I think it also allowed us a chance to show what some of the kinds of considerations are that board members make. I think we could add a component, which is just an open comment section, but we could create a set of questions which is reflective of, the presentation that's being made and the decisions the board has to be made. And that's where I think, like, even if we couldn't get our whole plan approved of the community engagement for the 24th, we might be able to get that approved, roll that out, and get that feedback. What do you guys think about something like that?
We're taking questions really only on what we're moving forward, right? We're not going to regress into why are you doing this? And hey, what about this other shiny ball over here type of stuff? I mean, at this point, right? I mean, we're informing, this is why I think, community engagement's kind of a misnomer in ways, because we're really not asking for feedback, on what we're going forward with. Right, all that happened, I think maybe just reorienting people to all of the work that we did do. The meetings at Harwood, the community engagement sessions at Crossett Brook. I mean, they're a little far behind us now, but it was all under the premise of getting to where we are today. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out a way to focus if people want to engage with us, then engage with us around what we're proposing, not a whole new idea.
Yeah, I mean, people are always going to kind of criticize, but you need to ask for information in such a way that gives you the value, the feedback that's more valuable, like that actually helps you make a decision, rather than just doesn't really move anything forward or move the conversation forward.
I mean, I'm just, by that token, I'm wondering, does it make sense in a survey to ask questions like, how likely are you to support a bond of $50 million or more? Sort of highly likely, somewhat likely, not likely, with some explanation of that response. I mean, I'm torn because I don't want the survey to then be a substitute bond vote. Ultimately, the question that matters is the one that people actually vote on, but would that be helpful for the board to see, what, we have this many sort of on the fence, like I could support a bond if, or I could support a bond, my gut is that there aren't many people who are going to say, well, I would vote for a $40 million bond, but not 50. But at the same point,
that's the part of the thing is putting it in context, right? Like I mean,
right.
That's why I think this 40 or 50 is a silly question.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
not 40 or 50. It's more like, what are you getting? So if for 40 we can get this, do you think we should stay there, or do you think we should go to 50 and get that?
Right.
Like those are the kind of questions that I think are much more useful.
Right. Do you do the bare minimum of like deferred maintenance, or do you, do some reconfiguration that, that is more suited to more modern learning and kind of really changes the look of the building?
I'd like to see it sort of worded in that way too, where it's, would you support a higher cost to meet 21st century education, standards or something like that, right? Or are you only having an appetite for, deferred maintenance? I think that the numbers can change, having done a few construction projects myself recently, the numbers can change from week to week. So I think the numbers question gets a little dangerous. More conceptualizing what folks are willing to support, I think would help us, because the numbers will continue to move a bit.
Jonathan, how do you feel about using that? Like you were involved too in that earlier survey, and we did obviously get a lot of pushback. Some people felt that it was not asking the right questions. I would say it was asking the questions the board was working to answer. But how do you feel about that right now?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the pushback that we got from that other survey was really a function of a certain fraction of people that were just against the merger at all costs, and so they weren't, they wanted to be able to register that, but they had ample opportunity to register that by email and in other ways. And I actually felt like the results from that survey were really useful.
They were
and
really
that
interesting.
Yeah, they're interesting, and they were useful, and a lot more people answered it than complained about it. So I wouldn't feel stung by what happened from that survey as a negative thing. I would continue to ask these kind of focus questions that you're talking about in terms of the decisions that we're not going to say, you're right. We're going forward with the bond, so we don't want to say, do you want a bond or do you not? The only question I would have is whether there's any value to leaving an open field for any other comments, because that might just reduce anger, and we can go through those.
That was a suggestion I got actually from one of the food service people, Erica, she said she had something where they had a little survey and she just left a comment box, and she was amazed at the huge range of things that people said in the comments, but nobody complained. So nobody complained to her about the survey. So she's like, just put a comment box, read the comments or don't read the comments. But I thought, that's an interesting idea,
I think the hard part about that is that, we can turn somewhat likely, unlikely, whatever the categories are, into a nice pie chart.
Yeah.
Even 50 comments of a paragraph length. I mean, ask our language arts teachers how long it takes to go through things like that, right? So I'm happy leaving the option open. I just want to,
Yeah.
recognize that it's a lot of work to read open-ended commentary, and there are other opportunities where the board is already together.
Yeah.
Not that everybody can make this. I understand there are barriers there, but just thinking about ways that we can get the whole board in one place at one time to hear the open-ended commentary versus having to read 200 comment section paragraphs is a challenge.
Yeah, and I didn't just mean like having at the end of a survey like we did, but then at the end there could be anything else you want to say, and so it's just one thing, and people will read it or not. Okay, that's a good point. So go ahead.
Me? No, I was just agreeing. Yeah, I was just saying the option's nice. So just being realistic about the ability to consume that much information in the timeline given for the board members.
Yeah. Okay, so that seems like a possibility for you guys. Other either goals for community engagement or starting to think about strategies?
I was just, sort of struck by the some of Marlena's comments at last meeting around, I guess, some of the suggestions she might have gotten. And I have been thinking a lot. I think I even made a joke at our last when we were talking about that previous survey. Do we put boxes at the supermarkets, right? Because everybody's got to eat, right? So like nobody can complain that they didn't get, if we put a big sign on the door and say leave a comment, here's a paper and a piece of paper and a pen. Nobody can say they didn't get access to that, or at least very few people might be able to say they didn't get access to that. So. I understand that's again open-ended. People could circle. That's going to take time from somebody to put those into the Google machine if they are circled by hand. But just in terms of wide reach strategies, a couple supermarkets in Waterbury, a couple supermarkets here in the Valley, and we could get a lot of feedback that way, I would think.
Yeah, and I know in other times when we've wanted to have things available in hard copy, either to read or to respond to, we've done the libraries, the town offices, the schools. Like this year, parents weren't in and out of the schools, but this coming year, we would be able to have something, say, at the main offices. And you're like you're saying, a few prominent businesses. I think we've done that sometimes with like our one pagers around the budget, just something that people could pick up. So it can't hurt. I mean, something that we would provide in hard copy. And again, it might be like one side is the survey to complete, or one page is that, and then maybe there's a page of information or something about want to learn more. And
Yeah.
people can pick
I
up.
was thinking, now what you said about informational, maybe that's even just, rather than making them surveys in that sense, just saying, here's a one-page information. And then with a link, again, here, if you want to send some comments, here's a way to do it. We could leave a Dropbox too, but I'm just thinking that, again, just giving our email address and then again, the board gets it all together. It's not individuals seeing
Oh, so
it.
you're almost thinking it would just be a handout that says, go online and take the survey.
No, I was actually thinking like the survey box, but then what Kayla was saying made me think like maybe it's just about getting information about how to be in touch with us. But I'm just having the conversation here. I'm not married to either strategy.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go too crazy with this. Who doesn't communicate electronically? All of the organizations that have been communicating with us, everything is electronics. I don't know. When people feign lack of access, I just don't believe it in this day and age. Nothing we do has it's all virtual. I don't know.
And as another option too, in terms of like, say we did put something out like a flyer, we have on our contact sheet that is online, but we could provide in hard copy how to contact your board members. And I remember a couple times around budget, people did call me because that was easier for them and they wanted to just be able to have a conversation. So if we want to sort of do the saving paper and not make lots of printouts of surveys that we don't think might go very far, but we do want to offer people who are, especially sometimes our older voters who are not interested in taking a Google form survey. Again, I feel like the perception is important, that we are really eager to share information and answer questions and hear from you. And I think over the years, we've gotten better and better of saying like, here are all the ways to do that. So I think it's just making sure that people know these are all the ways.
But maybe we think about some sort of, poster board then at strategic locations, right? So think about the town hall example, right? I'm a permitting person, and let's say you do something in Act 250, you got to mail it to the local clerk. It's just a piece of paper stapled to the wall in town hall. If you're not in there, you don't see it, So it's, where can we get the most, flyby with people, like Jeremy said, okay, grocery store is an obvious one. How many people are really in the library? I don't know. And when will we put them out? Are we going to put them out after 8/24? Right. So
It has to come out, because it wouldn't be approved yet anyway.
Right. So
Right.
I don't know, more of a canvassing it, than, because if we're going to do paper, we might as well just mail one to everyone in the district.
Yeah, I think
that way people can't deny, having been contacted.
That sounds expensive.
It does. It sure does.
When we did the visioning, outreach, I'm pretty sure that we had volunteers from each town put information out there. I remember doing data entry. I remember we also didn't get a ton. We didn't get a ton of responses by paper, but there was, I think there were town halls and maybe post offices or something along the lines of that. And I do feel like there's a certain amount of inclusivity to that. So I would say, you wouldn't have to have more than 5 copies at each location, because I don't think you're going to have like all of a sudden a crazy run on them. And if you did, the bottom sheet can give you information about how to contact. But I'm not against a small amount of paper outreach.
So here's another question is that I think we need to have probably a board conversation about, because there'll definitely be questions to folks about what does a yes vote mean and what does a no vote mean. And I think we do have some folks who are going to assume that our bond is a referendum on our K to 12 plan, and sort of we've been here before. And I think having a clear response to that and a plan for what, if the bond were to fail in November, does that mean we turn around and we put out another one in January with some modifications, or does that mean a start over with our capital planning? And I think that's going to be a really essential question for us as a board to be clear on, both for ourselves and for our voters.
I mean, just to keep in mind, I think it's hard to get a bond passed the first time around in any situation. So I don't think, I mean, I think we need to message that it's more about, for me, the work that needs to be done at the high school and the tax impact. But yeah, is there a way to glean that information from people? Like, why would they support a bond, or why wouldn't they support a bond?
That could be some survey stuff we could do
Yeah.
too. So that could
I
be
would
like a second survey, maybe after the 8th, between the 8th and the 15th or something, trying to understand more about what messaging we need to do. I don't know.
I like that way of framing a question. Why would you support a bond, or, why, yeah, or what would it, I don't know if it's what would it take for you to support a bond, but yeah, why would you support a bond for our schools? Another thing I think, just in terms of strategies that has worked and that I would encourage us to do again with this, is the FAQs, and as a document that's accessible and shared widely, and a Zoom Q&A, like I think you have there, that can be recorded, and so that people can chime into live, and maybe it's more than one of those, but certainly having at least one that's bond specific, or maybe it's one early in the process, like in early September, and then one closer to the voting date when people are starting to realize that maybe they
We'll
have
need
a
to do
ballot in their mailbox.
a public meeting as well, won't we? For the purpose of the vote.
Say
So
that again?
I think we need to hold a public meeting before the vote. But
Oh,
but
but the bond.
I think, I mean, Michelle could clarify that, but it, like with our annual meeting before the budget vote, like there might be some sort of statutory meeting we have to have. But if we were doing it, I'm thinking like in terms of timing, like when early voting starts, if people, right, if people can get their mail-in ballots, like that's when you'd want to time one, and then you'd want to time one to go with in-person voting, if we were to do two. And then I don't know if, like, before they've done tours through the building, I don't think the in-person tours have ever been very popular. So I don't know if there's.
Well, so REARC sent us a proposal to do a video. I don't know if you guys want to take a look at that. I linked it in the minutes. They're working with somebody, I guess, who's done this. And I shared that with you because I thought it might be something that like we can kind of piggyback along together. So that's, yeah, it's a lot of money.
Wow.
I do know that the Winooski district did a really fantastic video. I'd be curious what it cost them, but
yeah,
the webpage was great with all of the information. The video was really compelling.
Yeah.
And so I remember that as something that came up a lot for them. I also think when I talked to their chair at the time, they did 2 Saturday tour / breakfasts that got very little attendance, but he still thought they were very smart strategies because there was so much just sort of marketing and communication around them happening. So I think there were a lot of people who were like, I believe you, I don't need to see the leaky ceiling, but they knew it was happening, and it was just another way to keep getting the word out about the project. So those.
Even with those, sometimes if you can like be very focused and make sure you're inviting, like we talked about the stakeholder outreach, like we could, be very deliberate in, it's a public meeting and a public tour, but to make sure if there's people we want to focus on that could speak to the project, to the community, then invite them in, like somebody from the Rotary or the different PTAs or that type of thing.
So I was just gonna say, we can kind of take a page out of the Rotarians book, and then maybe in the fall, we, volunteer ourselves to go to different places, either farmers market or set up a table outside of, Mahirons or the village market in Waterbury, or any number of things where we're not just sort of standing off as board members, where we might give separate answers than others, but we go out as an informational. I mean, it's another way to just, get FaceTime with people. And I don't know.
Almost like a kissing booth, but for the bond.
Yeah.
So here's another question about, I don't know if it ends up being more complicated or more efficient. As we move forward also with the superintendent search, there may be certain events that make sense to sort of have some kind of combined information. And I don't know what those are going to be yet, but I'm thinking that as we get started with the search firm and they say, hey, we want to have these events to ask the community what they want in a new superintendent. If any of those fell in September or October, we would be wise to also have our bond packet out there, or posters or reminders or request your ballot. Anyway, so keeping that in mind, that we're going to have a lot of things going on, and the more we can capture people's attention, the better.
Yeah, it's like we have 2 months to make pests of ourselves, right? I mean, that's really kind of what we're talking about here. It's just, getting everybody's grill over these 2 months. Make sure that it can't be said we did not go out to the community.
And
Wondered about those. We almost need to see if anybody wants to start a PAC to promote it. So we're not really we're allowed to sort of offer information, but I think we're strangely we couldn't pay for a bunch of posters to be made that say support the bond. But if a PAC, there will almost certainly be a PAC that starts to defeat the bond. So do we want to reach out to PTAs and see if, or some of the parents who've tended to write to us in favor of this sort of thing, and see if they would be interested in getting together and running, a promote the bond campaign? I have no idea how to go about doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. So you are saying, right, that we can't set up a promote the bond campaign, but how is that different than doing a video, for example?
We'd be providing information about what changes, what the state of the building and the repairs needed, what the proposed changes are, what the cost is.
Right.
But we're not saying, and I guess we would be saying support the bond, but yeah, I don't know exactly what that is. Maybe some of it kind of qualifies under informational.
It's a subtle difference, because information always has a little, if you had a flashy video, I can't imagine that it's not just going to be completely I imagine there's going to be some point of view in terms of the and that comes out of that in terms of how badly needed these repairs are, et cetera, and the potential opportunities. I feel like if we did do a video, it's really important to actually have it be a really good one, and have it have pretty professional production values. I don't know. It's that could turn some people off just because it seems too slick and glossy, but at the same time, it's such an effective potential medium. So I don't know. It's an interesting question. Do you spend all that money right now, or do you see if you need to spend that money if it doesn't pass the first time, to get some more information out there?
Well, I think we have a challenging timeline to do a video, probably. Like if the soonest we could, like, so let's imagine that's another one that we pull out to try to get approved on the 24th.
Yeah.
You know, they really have like 6 weeks to do it. So that was part of the reason I wondered about, you know,
That's a really good point. Yeah, I agree. It's too tight to do it right for this time around. I think personally,
well,
I mean, I think
if we had a
yeah.
plan for what would go in, like, it sounds like, you know, if you look at that thing from REARC, they kind of have a list of like stuff that needs to go in already. Some of it are just also, you know, we would probably like, you know, we'll need certain kinds of drawings. We'll need some of that stuff. So some of that we could kind of get started a little early, just as part of information that's needed. And then some of it could probably be wrapped into a video. You know, it might not all have to be started from scratch on the 24th. I don't know.
I also think $34,000 when you just look at that seems really expensive, but when you put it in the context of a $50+ million bond, it's like 4 or 5 decimal points, I think, as a percentage of that cost. So, you know, if it does give people the information they need to support, it seems like quite a small sliver of the overall cost to do the work we're looking at doing.
Ari, where's the link to that? Because I'm on the agenda, but I don't.
So, look at the minutes that I emailed you this morning,
Okay, thanks.
and you'll see it there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Although
I
I'm
was in the
about to
wrong
move it,
document.
so I'm going to put it back in a second.
I also think it's taken us so long to get to this point. Like, we don't want to make any, you know, like, if finally getting to the, I mean, for me, it's like 5 years. So if we've spent all this time and effort doing it, and it's you know, a very small fraction of the total price, it's like, if it could be the difference maker, we should do it.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that so long as we have enough timeline to do it in, as long as we feel like we have enough time for it to be.
Well,
But,
and maybe that could be a question back to REARC.
yeah, and it's also, you know, it'd be good to see, can we see like other videos that they produced? Because that would give us a sense of, you know, whether we think how much of a asset we think it would be. I was thinking of that. Did you, I remember it was like a decade ago that somebody produced a video about living in Mad River Valley and all the benefits. I can't remember who did that, but that was a really lovely video.
Almost here, almost home.
Yeah. Oh, that was a beautiful video. And I just felt like, I mean, I don't know if that.
Are you
That was the Chamber of Commerce that
Yeah, I
did
was gonna
that,
say.
probably.
I was thinking it might have been Vince Frankie. I'm not sure. Did he do that one? Peregrine Productions.
It might.
He does a lot of those like community kind of videos and stuff.
Yeah, it was 2013. Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of like sort of tools to use, we've got the Q&A, FAQs, perhaps some surveys that are more multiple choice oriented overall. I have that written down. Surveys. And we've talked about how to incorporate hard copies of things as well. We want to explore the video possibility. And then we have, I guess we could call it like personalized outreach, maybe? Personalized sort of small group outreach, right? And that would include sort of these kinds of things. Let's see, what else should we, I mean, that's a lot already, really, of course.
Yes.
But one thing that's kind of cool is some of it we could, like if it was surveys and stuff, we could kind of have those, we could draft those this summer so that the survey is ready to go if it gets approval. You know, it's a little bit of it means that we're investing time on something that might not go ahead, but it does mean that if it's approved, we could just launch it right then. So I feel like that would be, I'd be happy to invest time in that. The FAQs, that's something that I guess that too, it might make sense to do some homework on that. I mean, it seems like but so are we then messing up the spirit of the waiting for direction from the board if we started on FAQs kind of before we got approval?
What was the direction for this committee?
Our chore is just to basically put together a plan to provide and get approved by the board. So, and then the board has to approve it.
Well, I
But
would think that, you know,
start
like,
everything
oh yeah, I
on-
would think producing sort of like draft or outline documents for these that are not sort of finalized and say, here's an idea that we have to the board. We would do a survey, something like this. Do you have any feedback on this survey, or, you know, can we finish it up? And same with that, like you have something that's completed, you know, that would probably be overreaching, but as part of planning to show some examples and even take it, you know, and that would also reduce the amount of risk that you spend hours and hours and hours polishing something and making it perfect. And then the board says, not interested.
Yeah. What did the rest of you think about that?
I think I mean, I think we could have some pretty strong drafts. I think that the huge overstepping would be like if we started pushing stuff out and said, here's our survey.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Agreed.
and I think there's a justifiable reason for starting stuff. And as long as we understand that the board might choose to not move it forward, and we're not gonna, you know.
Yeah, I think we would have to understand that there's a chance that they would say no. So we're investing time in a slightly risky fashion in terms of our own personal sanity. So if people were comfortable with that, but I would want us to only do that if we could move forward without like digging into the final result needing to be the way our drafts looked. Does that kind of make sense? So that we're still waiting for true meaningful guidance from the board. We're just getting like we're toying around with ideas almost.
Yeah, I think that would be the sweet spot.
Okay.
And I think that by having these minutes go out, and if we meet again, another, you know, agenda and minutes, that is a communication tool, of course, both for our board and for our public. I'm not asking board members to then, you know, jump in with their objections or something, but it does mean that people are going to be up to date with the work during the summer. I'm comfortable with this drafting proposal that people are talking about.
One thing I wondered about is sort of, we talked, this is kind of circling back to the goals for the community engagement. I do notice like in some of our feedback that we get from people that it does feel like community engagement to them means asking for the community to tell us what they want so that we can do it. Whereas I tend to feel like the role of the board is to show leadership and to put something before the community for it to respond to in general. So I guess I'm kind of wondering, like, I feel like we maybe need to define terms a little bit, or do we make ourselves vulnerable to this other conversation, which is, well, I still don't want to do moving the 7th and 8th grade. And that's not like, so, you know, and I wonder if even like putting something in these minutes that says what our goals for community engagement are this, they're not the other thing or whatever.
I don't think it can hurt, but I think we were pretty clear with the last survey as well. And, you know, it didn't stop 20 or 30 folks or so from being upset about it. So I think it makes sense to put right out there what our mission is. I think being clear and upfront with that, again, is a good idea. Just so that it's right from the start here, what the hope is. But I don't think it's going to make us immune or, you know, from criticism. So.
Well, I also think sometimes people forget, like people say, but this is all new. No, it's not. We have been engaging around this within the board and the community for 5 years now. So I'm going to just put that in the minutes, if that's okay with you guys, and you can erase it or change it if you want to. So I don't need to have exclusive control, but I propose that we put something like this in there.
I don't think it would hurt to say the goal of the engagement. I mean, that might actually, somebody might disagree with that being the goal, but you know, I think at least it's important for everybody to have a clear understanding of what the goal is and why you're doing it, so that, you know, what's the thinking back to the, you know, if people think that they're engaging or they're providing information about X and it's really about Y, then ultimately they're going to be unhappy. But if you're clear up front about why you're doing it and what you're going to do with the information, it puts you in a better place. I mean, you know, we can't crowdsource every single decision that we make as a district. And that's where, you know, like the elected representation comes in. And I know some people feel there's a whole continuum of people that feel on that scale of how they feel about that, but.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
So I'm typing into the minutes, and maybe you could just take a look and see if you feel like that's a fair representation of our conversation. And if not, I really don't mind changing.
I have a different question, which is, are we also going to need to make a decision about whether we mail ballots to all voters?
Good question.
I don't think the legislation related to municipal elections. I think what the state passed this spring was more statewide. So again, that's not really what our committee needs to do, but it probably is something that our board needs to consider.
Okay. And some of that also might depend on what our communities are doing, right? So, okay.
I don't know that any of the communities are having November 2 elections this year, right? Because aren't we on a sort of off year? I don't think there are other, I think we will probably be paying for this election.
Okay. There's not a gubernatorial, no, I guess we would have, okay. So there are no other ballots. Oh, okay.
I don't think so.
All right.
I could be wrong. And I do think schools are closed on this day, though.
Yeah,
as
they're
professional development. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so oh, the other thing is we sort of some possible key themes we want to be sharing out. I wonder if we could expand on that list a little bit. Because right now it's almost more like political considerations, not school considerations. Like, you know, so like the need, you know, the do we want to talk about like the building needs repairs, you know, that kind of thing? Or do you feel like that's once we develop materials, we'll put that stuff in?
Yeah, it'll become obvious, right?
Are you saying what should be in the FAQ?
I guess so. Maybe that's the question. So right now, like if I look at our goals for community engagement, we talked about why November, what does a yes vote and a no vote mean? But those aren't, that's not how we get the ballot or the proposal passed, right? Like,
Yeah, I
that's
mean, I think
almost like
what
our internal strategy or something. Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's sort of what does the bond likely include? And maybe it's a brief summary of that, you know, priority 1, 2, and 3 and what that includes. And mostly links to those documents that show the different maps and the outlines. I think there's probably some stuff in that bond planning to date document that we could cut and paste for this sort of thing too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. One thing about the FAQs is, you know, we actually have done a lot of writing about bond stuff. So a lot of these answers are kind of already there. We just kind of cut and paste a lot. There's the question of why November, kind of, you know, versus March. There's also just the question of why now, like 2021, you know, so why not wait longer? Why not wait, you know, till after COVID? Why not wait till we're not in a recession? You know, that kind of stuff.
I've heard some say, why don't we wait until the new superintendent is in place? And I also think we'll get questions about PCBs.
But I think part of it too is like the whole design is 60 years old, right? So it's from pre-computers.
ENIAC.
What?
I said ENIAC.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you know, I mean, I guess, and for me, partly like the answer to that is like the PCBs will be resolved as part of the process, but like we can't keep coming up with excuses why to wait, right? Like we waited for the Act 46 merger. We waited to figure out a K through 12 plan. Like at some point we can't just keep waiting for something else. Like it's never a perfect time.
I think we'll want to talk about the opportunities that the bond offers, right? Not just the cost, right? And then we'll need to look at costs, sort of global, but also personal. Like how much will this affect your tax bill, that kind of thing.
Is it worth in some way communicating? And this would be, again, I'd want the board to sort of affirm this, but to say, it's not a question of if a bond, it's really a question of when a bond and how big a bond. Because our school absolutely needs this. And obviously we can't, I don't want to be presumptuous because we can't do it without voter support and approval, but sort of the idea that if this bond doesn't pass, we're going to need to keep asking until something passes because the facility really demands it.
Or you're adding a ton of money to your budget. So then it's like, well, what would you need annually to attend to some of these issues? And what's that, you know, like, are we going to say, well, we need $5 million to tackle this chunk of deferred maintenance in this year and 5 million next year? Like, it's not.
It might be like, that's a good question for FAQs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think, you know, we have a more nuanced answer than just, oh, if we wait, it's going to cost more, because that's been an answer for a long time. That
And
can
look,
be
it
part
costs
of
more.
it.
Oh. Sorry, I was just trying to joke, not stop you.
No, it's fine. I just think as we answer it, it's both, it's going to cost more. And we've done so much preparation over the last 5+ years that we feel confident in the bond we are putting before you. We're not just trying to rush something through because it's getting expensive. It's been getting expensive for a long time. And so,
Yeah. Okay, so we're almost at time. Oops. What should we do next?
Well, what's happening tomorrow? Back to kind of what's going to be going on with the planning meetings underneath it all here.
Yeah, so tomorrow, like the middle school folks are meeting to try to finish sort of roughing out what they want. And then the high school folks are meeting to try to start looking into their budget and I guess my thought was like, we need to figure out how to tell the story of the costs and also figure out like how to package them a little, you know, is it just gonna be one thing? Is it gonna be a la carte? Is it gonna be, here's option A, here's option B, here's option C? So just kind of trying to dig into that a little, so that we're starting to see like where are the decision points for the board and starting to package those into some units that could offer a little flexibility. So it's not just all up and all down, which doesn't seem very useful. Well, it's nobody likes to be put in that position, right?
So how many meetings are there going to be?
For what?
You're talking about? So tomorrow, I mean,
Tomorrow there are 2 short meetings, I think. And then I would guess that there will be another couple, 1 or 2 for each of those. Right, you know, right now they're separate streams. At some point they'll need to merge.
and who's responsible for those work products?
Well, I guess I sort of think you and I are, Tim.
Okay, I guess I looking back at my email, I don't have anything on my calendar tomorrow. I saw a doodle poll email once, but I don't
All right.
have anything on my calendar for these
Okay,
background meetings.
Huh, I'm sorry that some of that well, David's coordinating the middle school one. Maybe you're not on that one.
Yeah.
And then I've been coordinating the high school one because when I look at what they've got so far and what they've presented so far, I don't see it in chunks that the board can make decisions around. And so it's just trying to figure out how to.
No, that's all I'm asking. So how do we coagulate that? I mean, it's because it's going to go, you know, into our decision making. So, you know, there's kind of a finite amount of time that they have to, you know, there has to be a work product out of that, right?
Yeah. Right now, I guess I feel like it's me trying to share with them the questions I think the board will have so that they have materials ready for the board to respond to. Because that to me feels like sometimes the materials that we get show that a lot of work went into it, but it's not really very like user friendly for the board, or I can see right away 7 questions that the board is going to have that are useful big questions that the board and the community is going to need to see clear broken out answers to that. So it's like that kind of thing.
But it's focused, right? It's not, I want Coke instead of Pepsi, you know, it's, you know, we've kind of, right? I mean, we don't want these conversations to sprawl into things that we're not prepared to,
right,
you know, have in our plan, right?
Right.
I mean,
right. Okay, now in terms of the community engagement stuff, we have, you know, sort of a big list. We could, and now we have some time, because now I thought maybe we'd have to meet in early August, but we're just going to meet in late August for the next meeting. We could we could think about trying to finalize a list. We could try to, this isn't exactly like a, I don't think a board ready plan. We could start drafting some materials. What do you guys feel like is the next step for this committee?
And again, I guess it goes back to, you know, these background meetings with the school administrators. When, I mean, we need to, yeah, I guess we need to see that. I don't know, do we meet in like mid-August? Once all of the administrators are done with Rearch and Truex?
Yeah, we could try to talk again like in earlier mid-August, and then maybe a couple of us could start drafting a little bit of stuff, so that I do think that if we thought a survey of some kind was likely to be part of our recommendation, the only way to make use of it would be to have it basically ready to go on the 24th. So we'd need some people to do some drafting for that. But will you guys have time in the second half of August? I don't know.
Plus, if we want to make sure that people are tuning into that meeting, we're going to need to push something out in terms of publicizing what's happening that night.
Okay. So maybe should we try to touch base at the end of July? And then we could come up with a couple plans around those things. Does that seem good?
That's fine. I can certainly meet again and I can draft or review drafts. That's fine over the summer.
Okay. I do want to be, you know, so easy for committees to just meet endlessly, and I certainly don't want to have that, but I want to have our efforts, you know, be something that we can demonstrate and have feel pretty finished. So if we met
How
in,
about the 27th or something? That's 4 weeks from today.
okay, everybody take a look.
I'm on vacation end of July. I could do early August. But I also don't plan around me. I'll help with the drafts before I go on vacation too. I do think another meeting is worth it. I mean, this has been a really good brainstorming session. I feel like we have a really broad net over what we might want to do. And as Tim was saying, as we get more details, as these other things, you know, that might help us narrow what we brainstormed so far. But then also there's a few things that are low-lying fruit here, like the FAQs and the survey, that it's almost, you know, unless the board dramatically opposes those, it seems like that's, you know, those are worth developing.
That sounds great. Okay, so could anybody else do the 27th? It sounds like Jonathan's not really available.
I'll be gone as well then.
On to. So Caitlin could do it, Christine could do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably be remote. I might be out of town, but I should be able to make it remote.
Okay. So should we try to find a different date? I mean, if you guys want to, what, like the week before that, or?
Sorry, I sent you my schedule. I have like maybe 6 days in this between now and August 15th that I'm actually free. So like I'm happy to have been part of this right now. If folks want to carry on without me, I can help with some of the stuff potentially in the background, but I wouldn't worry about me for scheduling the next meeting. I'm going to say no a lot. And
okay. Well, and it sounds like if we kept doing planning to like shape something for board review, that the four of us could do that. But then in terms of work product, you might be able to help draft and you might be willing to give feedback in a non-scheduled manner. Am I hearing that right?
Yes, and that let's see, where is it? Like the week of I'm not even know where my calendar is. Sorry, I'm looking at my calendar trying to make sense of what's in front of me here. Next week and the week after that are actually like the second half of next week and the week after. So we have some products to either work on or review by that point. That's the window really to catch my freedom.
Okay. I feel like, so for like the survey, I don't think we'd have anything yet because I think we'll have a better sense of what the scope of the questions and the decisions are going to be as that group figures out how they're going to package stuff, right? But the FAQs could be started. But I also think that will come together pretty quickly because we do have so much stuff. Maybe it's a little early. I guess I don't feel prepared to give good direction about that right now. Does anybody else feel like they've got enough to go with that? Not yet. So, oh, go ahead.
Have a better sense of the true scope.
Later in the summer.
Yeah. I mean,
So
and
what
then
about
even if it were to wait to August, I think like that's kind of when we start to shift mode from like full on summer to kind of dipping our toes back into work and school. So it wouldn't bother me to leave it for a few weeks and then come back to it. Like,
Yeah,
probably-
I'm doing the unprecedented and trying to take 2 full weeks, the last 2 weeks of July for a vacation. So early August is a better time frame for me as well. I'll probably be a little overwhelmed with work that first week, but I can at least attend a meeting and then hopefully things will start to.
What does August 3rd work just as well for you guys in terms of a meeting? We could just slide it then.
Works for me.
Do it at
Yeah.
noon.
Yes, does that work just as
That'd
well?
be great. Yeah.
August 3rd. Okay, so instead of doing this the 27th, we'll do August 3rd. Okay. Okay. And we'll do that at noon again. And so right now we meet August 3rd to try to finalize a plan for the board, and then we can start doing some drafting of samples and stuff like that. Does that sound good?
That
Okay.
sounds really
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Oh, and okay. All right. Anything else that we should be considering changing? Anything in these minutes that doesn't look right to you? I will do some limited formatting unless somebody else wants to finalize that and then send those minutes off to central office. Does anybody else want to finalize it? Like you feel like I'm not capturing it right? Or right enough? Okay,
I think it's good.
okay. Cool.
Imagine if we only had a 6-person board. Snap an hour.
Yeah. All right. Any feedback right now about the hybrid meeting? I guess in some ways we had a simple test because we had no participants except for you guys.
It looks great. I mean, I can see how it could work where you have both with the videos of the room. You could have both. I can see how it was a technical challenge to get all those cameras set up and all the sound and everything. There was once or twice where I was wondering. There was once or twice where there was alien sounds or something. There's some feedback happening, and I was wondering if Curtis needed to be there to save that. And then does that mean that Curtis would have to be at every one of these hybrid meetings, even for committees?
I don't think for committees. I think my guess is that we'll be able to figure out, I hope we could figure out a committee thing that is workable. But yeah, I think for the big meetings, we'll need to have somebody here to staff it. As he was saying, we're essentially doing video production. We need a production assistant. Like that's not something that we can do without
Right.
some professional help. So
Yeah. Yeah, we could. One thing we couldn't test was could the people on Zoom hear when the person in the audience want to ask a question?
yeah, so he's getting some equipment that will have like inputs for those mics. Right now he's got 2 cameras set up in here, and he'll have more. And then I think there might even be an input for like the screen sharing, like what we would typically put on the back screen, that kind of thing.
Cool.
We'll see. It will probably keep morphing over the summer.
Seems very promising.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, everybody.
Thanks.
Nice to
Talk to
see
you
you.
later in the
Taking
summer.
notes.
Enjoy
Yeah.
July.
Yeah.
I
Thanks,
hope
Terry. Thank you, Terry.
Tari and Tim, I hope you guys get some time off in July
Me too.
from board duties.
Great.
Because it sounds like it's gonna be a busy fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, everyone.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks again.